Hey YouTube viewers, what's going on? Mark here today from the TST Garage, back with another build series episode. Today's video is actually going to be a mini-sode. We're going to take a closer look at the crashed up components from our last track day. If you watched that video, you will know that we went down twice. So we need to replace those components. I just want to show them in a little bit closer of a view and inspect really what happened. And we're also going to showcase our ability to replace them. We do carry most of the replacement parts needed for the most common Womet-Tech and Gilles Tooling products we carry in stock. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So normally, when addressing and replacing crash components, 9 times out of 10, we only want to replace the pucks if there's any sort of structural integrity compromised. You will notice that on the frame slider and on this fork slider, there's still a lot of material that can be ground down in the event of a crash. So for this reason, we will not be actually replacing the fork slider component. There is no structural integrity compromise on that entire assembly. It can still work. Nothing loosened up or broke inside. So we're actually going to leave that like that. It kind of just gives it a rugged look, and to be quite honest, there's no need to replace that at this time. Coming over to the frame slider, normally we would just replace the puck. We do have the Womet-Tech replacement pucks here in the various lengths of frame sliders that they offer. However, when looking at it from the side, we did realize that this is actually bent completely. When I remove this, I am assuming that as I'm removing it, it's going to rotate a little bit more. I'm not sure if the adapter is bent or the bolt for this frame slider. Needless to say, we have the entire left side assembly here, and we're just gonna replace the entire thing. Moving back a tiny bit more, this toe piece and this footrest for the Gilles Tooling rear sets are kind of crucial components because you are putting your feet on them. They're ground down slightly, at least the toe pieces, the footrest a little bit more, but we're gonna go ahead and replace those. Those are really nice, this is a really nice kit, so we're just gonna make it look fresh. We do carry replacement toe pieces and footrests for most of the Gilles Tooling products or rear sets in the black color. We don't have like the gold or the red or anything like that, but if you have black foot pegs or black toe pieces, you need them replaced because you went down, your buddy dropped your bike, whatever the case is, we do carry them in stock. And the last thing that touched at our track day, unfortunately, was the spool. However, it did bend the boss, so we do need to find a better solution. We need to repair this and find a permanent solution. Our captive chain adjuster and GP lifter kit for the MT-03 and R3 will work perfectly fine on this assembly. So I think once we remove this and straighten it out, we are actually going to install that as opposed to using spools or spool sliders, because this can, as you can see, cause damage to your swing arm or to the boss that it mounts onto. You want to avoid that if possible. So we're gonna go ahead and swap that with something that's a little bit more rugged and durable, and it won't snag onto anything should you go down and your bike starts sliding. So in order to replace these components, you just want to follow the installation process in reverse. So to gain access, this is a 4-piece assembly. You have the cap, the puck, the spacer, and then you have the bolt inside. So to gain access, you just want to take the cap off. As you can see, it's kind of ground down there pretty bad. That does give you access to the bolt inside, and then you can replace the components as necessary. Normally, you only want to or need to replace the frame slider puck, which we do stock. But in this case, as I mentioned, the entire bolt is bent. So we're actually gonna replace that and get this all just as a fresh kit. All right, so now that this is replaced, I just wanna showcase how bent this really was. As you can see, the bolt did bend in this piece right here. I'm unable to break this apart. The bolt will not go through this spacer. And that's just one of the risks of installing frame sliders. Now we have a fresh kit on here. We can go ahead and move on to the rear sets and get that squared away. So coming back to our Gilles Tooling rear sets, as you can see, the toe pieces ground down a little bit, the footrest much more. So we're gonna go ahead and replace those. We don't need to, but it is something we wanna go ahead and change because these are a pretty nice kit. We wanna showcase that quality that Gilles Tooling brings to this bike. The toe piece, pretty simple. We do need to gain access to the backside. There's a countersunk screw. So we're gonna loosen this bolt up. That'll allow us to pivot the toe piece down and gain access. And then inside this footrest, there's actually a set screw in here. And really replacing this is as easy as, this bike is now ready to go again.
All right, so once again, we've tested the effectiveness of the Womet-Tech frame sliders and some other protection parts that we offer for the R3 MT-03. So you can see here, a little bit of carnage. We ground down a peg, took off the toe piece, and broke a lever. The engine cover here on the stator sustained a little bit of sliding damage. That's not all from one crash. I think that's 3 crashes worth on there. The last one ground down a little bit more. These are the race spec frame sliders. They lay a little bit more inboard. So that is why you see a little bit more damage on here than if we had the full size ones. But we do this for the purpose of not catching soft surfaces and flipping the bike over. We're okay with replacing a couple of these pieces. See here, we have the stock clutch on there. We had it in our kit. So 20 minutes and we were back to racing. Bar end ground in. The bar actually sustained a little bit of damage, but this is nothing that we can't race with and then change after the racing event. The tail, little scratch here on the nose piece. Also a very little piece here that got scratched. And the mid fairing shifted a little bit around the frame slider and got a little bit of a crack, but no big deal. We'll fiberglass patch it from the inside and we'll be good to go. Our fork slider actually did the job. It got ground off and saved everything around here. The rim, we have aftermarket Superbike wheels on this. No damage to those. No damage to any of the other auxiliary components around here. And lastly, here on the swing arm, we have our GP lifter captive adjuster set. A little bit of grinding to the ears that accept the GP lifter and a little bit of grinding to this component here, but that really just saved our axle. And now we continue to be able to take off and put back on this nut onto the axle and no bending of the axle. So all in all, pretty fortunate. It wasn't a really fast crash. It was a low side going into a pretty fast corner. I don't know, it was about 60 miles an hour. But again, it just shows you how effective these pieces are.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
All right, so now that these are all taken care of and replaced, looking beautiful as ever, I do just want to give a huge shout out to Womet-Tech and Gilles Tooling for having the ability and the resources to provide us with replacement parts as much as possible and as quickly as possible. Not only for our fleet bikes and our shop bikes, but for our customers' bikes as well. Should you go down, we do try and stock some of these most common components as much as possible in-house so that the turnaround time is very short. However, if you do have a bike we don't carry a lot of products for, or if you have an off-brand rear set kit from Gilles Tooling, we will absolutely try and get you any replacement parts you may need. You do, during this installation process, you do want to reference your owner's manual for these products or our installation videos for specific torque specs. And for the rear sets components in particular, you may want to apply a little bit of blue or red Loctite onto the bolts securing these to the rear set base. This has been Mark from TST. I'm signing off. Catch you guys next time.